Gotta get a trim.
Are you ready, Neal?
I'm ready. I'm ready for this.
Are you ready for this?
I guess.
It's your first podcast, dude?
Yeah, it definitely is.
Awesome.
A lot of firsts this last week.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. All right. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Live Beyond Average podcast. Episode 89, dude.
Creeping up there.
Creeping up. We're already gearing towards the end of September here, and we've had a jam-packed, loaded, action-packed, maybe is the word, September between elk hunting, mule deer hunting, and you and Neal just got back from an awesome mule deer hunt.
Yes.
Let's introduce Neal. Neal, new to the podcast today. You're our official guest. Dustin's really no longer a guest, so he's kind of like the host now.
Shoot,
that's why we got him in the middle.
Yeah.
So, Neal, tell us a little bit about you, your background, where you come from, and how you got kind of started with hunting.
I'm 35. I'm from South Dakota here, small town. Kind of got introduced into hunting from my grandfather, and then I kind of fell out of it for a little bit, and then got back in and trying to increase my hunting ability every day and every year.
Sure.
But yeah, my first mule deer hunt with archery equipment. So
yeah,
it's a lot of fun, a lot of learning experience there. But man, sure was a blast.
Dude, and I've seen the pictures. I won't get into it until I won't jump the gun on the story. But yeah, pretty cool. For your first trip, what you guys accomplished is awesome. A lot of people don't get to experience it that early.
Yeah.
And so it's really cool. So Dustin, let's get into it. You guys went out last week.
Yeah.
Day one.
Yeah,
Let's talk about it.
Day one, we kind of got out there in the afternoon. Like I said, we had a 4-day hunt, and we didn't go into it really thinking that, we're just going to go out and hammer, we're going to harvest a couple mule deer. It was more of a, hey, this might just be a scouting trip, just because of the temps. I mean, we're talking 84 to 88 every day, and it wasn't really cooling down at night. So I was like, are they going to be up and moving? Are we going to be able to stand to be out there to put a stock on something? And I mean, it was awesome. We got out, and the first night, I ended up finding the deer that I ended up harvesting, and he was popped up out of a cut 105 yards from me, and I had a small Handycam video camera, and I took some video of him, and I just kind of was like, this is really awesome. I found a nice one.
Yeah. And
then it got dark, and we were kind of impressed at how many deer we actually saw. They were up early. I mean, we were out there at 2.5 hours before sunset, and there was plenty of deer up and on their feet. So that next morning, kind of went back into that same spot, hoping he would be fairly close, and it wasn't there. There was a couple other nice ones there. Had a nice 3x3 that was still in full velvet that was really cool looking, and then another nice 4x4, but he wasn't there. So I was kind of contemplating on moving to a little bit different spot, maybe finding somewhere that was shaded. And as I turned to look to the other side, to look north, I just see buck after buck jumping over this fence about a mile away, and I ended up counting 9 bucks.
Wow.
There was a couple nice 4x4s in there, a lot of little guys.
Yep.
But they were just steady file, right down this fence line and down to this cut. And then just as I pulled my spotting scope up and I was getting everything centered on them, my buck ended up jumping the fence, and I was like, whoa, that's way nice.
Yeah.
That's a better deer.
For sure.
And it was really cool. He came following those guys, and they kind of went down and into this one really deep cut, and we're kind of playing around and coming back out, and he kind of fed through some snowberries and just kind of looked back, like seeing if any one of those is following him, and then dumped down into this really gnarly ravine. And I was like, okay, he's going off to hang out by himself. He doesn't want those guys by him. So I texted the other 2 guys, Neal and Lance, and I'm like, hey, I found him. I'm going to go after him. And, they're like, no way. There's no way here.
It doesn't happen.
You found him last.
You
found him last night. Now you're going after him right away in the morning.
This is easy.
Yeah.
This is easy.
No, and I kind of worked my way over there, and I crawled up a couple of times and couldn't see him, and I'm like, I know he didn't come out of here. And then finally I got up to a spot where I saw him and got down and had about a 76-yard shot, but I had a really strong crosswind and he was kind of facing me.
Okay.
Really poor angle. So I'm like, okay, if I back out, come back around his other side, I might be able to see him. And I went around, crept up over this little piece of embankment, piece of badland, and he was at 66 yards.
Nice.
And as I'm getting all my stuff set up, my legs start cramping up. I was out there in this goofy looking, if anybody would have saw me or had a video camera on me, I would have been on America's Funniest Home Videos, because they wouldn't know what I was doing. I'm in this like goofy tripod position trying to get my hamstring and my quad on my opposite leg to stop.
Well, there's a reason we don't film any of your hunts.
Oh my goodness. It was just the worst. So finally when I get this, I ended up getting these cramps to subside and take a few deep breaths and drink some water, and
sure,
he's still laying there sleeping.
Yeah, he's good.
Yeah, and then just as I was kind of getting ready to shoot, he stood up and I was like, oh shoot, I need to make my shot, and ranged him again. He was at 66 still, and just pulled back and shot, and it went right through.
Nice.
I basically low heart shot.
Yep.
And he kind of just hunched up and took like 3 or 4 steps, and then I couldn't see him. I thought, what the heck? Did I get him? Did I?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I'm pretty
Moment
sure.
of self-doubt.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I saw that arrow go through him, and he walked around, and then I kind of made my way around, and he was just curled up, laying there, and then I ended up putting another arrow in him, and then he went about 100 yards and laid down, and then I texted these guys, and
nice.
I'm like, big buck down, I got him. They're like,
Cool.
No way.
That's
like,
cool.
Yep, now I need some help packing.
Typical Dustin.
Yeah.
Come get my deer for me.
Yeah, you got experience with that.
That's awesome, dude.
Yeah.
What a great 12 hours. Like, get out
Oh.
there, find the deer you want, re-find him.
Yes.
And then actually, he goes into a stockable position, puts himself in a killable spot, where you can get in and execute. We talk about that so much in the last couple of years on mule deer hunting, that how much of it is, all your skill and preparation mixed with a lot of patience, mixed with some luck, because if that deer doesn't go and sit in a spot that's killable, you're just sitting back waiting, and you're waiting for that night or the next morning to hopefully see him again and catch him go to a killable spot, right? Because if they're not in a killable spot, you're blowing them out.
No, and that was with him having all those other bucks around him. If he would have went with that group,
Yep, you're not getting him.
there's a lot of eyes, hence Neal's deer.
Yeah, and so you took advantage of the situation, executed with patience.
Yep.
Look what happened, dude.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so you texted the guys. You're all. Everybody gets in there.
Yeah. We get in there, and we're all kind of coming together, and the deer picks his head back up and looks at us. Yep.
Are you serious?
Yeah. We're looking at each other,
What the heck?
and I'm like, I know I made a good shot, and I got a follow-up shot. What in the world?
Yeah. How's he alive? Dude, it's crazy.
They're the toughest. I mean, Western animals, elk, mule deer, they are tough animals.
That's nuts, man.
And I went back down, so I crept right down, and Neal came with me, and he kind of slid off to the right of me, looking in those other cuts for those other deer. And then I kind of just waited, and I shot the deer again and opened up another nice hole down.
Yeah.
And made another good shot, and he kind of rolled over, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's a finishing shot. And then I could see my arrow that's in him still moving, he's still breathing. And at that time, I know it was all adrenaline.
He's dead.
But at the same time, I don't like sitting there watching an animal suffer.
Yeah.
And I want to...
You're right there.
I want it to be as humanely as possible. So then I ended up putting a 4th arrow in him,
Crazy.
and then it was done. And these guys come down there like, no way. And Lance was like, all of a sudden I see you draw back again and again.
How many deer is he shooting down there? Dude, you only have one day.
Oh,
but, like that little elk that I have down there, my first archery elk, same thing. I shot him 4 times at 20 yards.
Yep.
And he just, 3 of them through the lungs. They're such, it's like, every once in a while you get one of those ones that are just, they don't want to die, dude.
No.
Yeah,
And
tough as nails.
They both had, we're talking like 5 to 6 inches of fat up on
So
their
good.
rump
Yeah,
and
it's been a great
pockets
year.
of fat up
Yeah.
in their neck.
Good.
So we talked to one of the older ranchers out there, and
Mm-hmm.
he's like, "Oh, that's not good because it's going to be a hard winter." I'm like, "Well, they've had a pretty good year of eating." He's like, "Yeah, but history shows it's going to be a hard winter." So we're like, "Oh boy."
Yeah.
Somebody who's in their
Who knows?
80s, we're taking your word for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude, last year was nasty.
Yeah.
Be up for it again, I
Yeah.
believe it. All right, so you get the deer packed out.
Get him packed out, get some cool photos.
Yep. Yep.
And get back, and then we actually ran to town, got some jalapenos and cream cheese, and
Oh yeah, nice.
did some
Nice.
bacon wrap tenderloin that night.
All right,
and,
all right. Do you guys have a grill and stuff that
yeah,
you
we
guys did
did.
it on?
Grill there, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was awesome. Having some fresh tenderloin to
Right.
gnaw on out there. Yeah, and then we went back out that evening, kind of looking for
Yeah.
deer for the other guys. Didn't really see much that evening. And then I think that next morning, that evening.
That evening, we put a
Yep, sorry, that evening we actually put a stock on some, and that was that velvet 3x3
3.
Okay.
and another 4x4, and they were literally working their way into us, and I'm pressuring Neal. I'm like, he's at 100. Like, I don't know, he's getting close, and we're running out of light.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
that, prototypical, oh, it's going to be last light, and it was.
It's the last light.
He laid, that big 4x4 laid 126 yards, bedded up, looking around for like a half an hour. And then they were making our way in, and I'm looking at him, and he's like, this is going to happen.
Yeah.
You're going to get a shot. And then he was like at 80, and he kind of turned. I'm like, you should shoot him now. And he's like, oh, they're coming closer. I'm like, okay. And they come a little bit closer and keep facing us.
Sure.
So it was just
Yeah.
frustrating.
They
as
know how
all
to
get
eat up
out.
the time. Yeah.
Oh man, they did eat up the time.
Yep.
Yeah, and of course it's killing both of us because that 3x3 comes in and he'd turn, but then that next one would come in, so it's like,
Yeah.
and we ended up not getting a shot. It got too dark, and
Okay.
at that time, I mean, granted they worked their way into they're sub 40 yards, but
Nice.
we got timed out. And
Yep. Yep.
A little bit of cloud cover and
Yeah.
not.
Eats up a little bit of that light that you could have used.
Yeah, I mean, having questions like the ethics too of
Oh,
you really don't want, and like we said,
exactly.
wounding one of them at last light and trying to track
Exactly.
something on a marginal shot.
Yep. And you can't even have time to see where you impact. You're guessing.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, and we saw a number of coyotes out there, so we were really gonna
Right.
leave them out overnight.
Right. Right.
But yeah,
All right. Take over. Let's hear it,
see.
dude.
So the very next day, we got out there, and the temp didn't drop at all for the overnight. So it was hot in the morning. I think it was mid 70s.
Oh, nasty.
Mid 70s. Not a lot of wind either. Right away in the morning. Got out, kind of split up to divide and conquer and try and pick somebody out. And I didn't find anybody. I found a pocket of does, and that was kind of it. And Dustin had texted me that he had found one, and he ended up bedding down. The wind started picking up a little bit, but nothing crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And he was in a stockable position, so I made my way over there, and we kind of divided up, or kind of figured out a game plan. And right as we were getting ready to head that way, here comes a pocket of does, probably eight does coming right down, right down where we didn't want them.
Yeah, of course.
We didn't want them there at all. So we kind of waited around, and they were kind of milling out and feeding down the cut there. So we thought, well, the wind's blowing, it's pushing, and we should be fine with the wind. We might bump them out a little bit, but they should just kind of head on down the way. So we get down in there. Dustin gets in a good spot where he can kind of oversee, and if he does bust out, then maybe or just get up and move. He'll have a good view of where he's at.
Right.
And kind of figure that out. But so I get down in the cut and start going, and sure enough, a couple fawns. I don't know what they did. They either smelled me or they just were uncomfortable, got up and took off, and then somebody else winded me. They blew. They took off over the hill and pretty much landed on top of this buck. So that stock was pretty well shot at that point.
Two goofy fawns,
Yeah.
had no idea
Of
what he
course.
was, and then one doe blue, and I'm talking, this fawn went right over the top of this buck's head, and he must have just been like, what the heck? You know, because he's up and
Yeah. And
gone.
then you're like, well, we're never seeing any of these again.
Yeah, I don't believe we ever did catch a glimpse of him after that.
No.
That's funny.
So that was the morning. So we pretty much packed it up after that and went back. And I think at that point we decided that we both kind of needed a nap from the prior day's activities of packing his deer out and everything. So we kind of laid down for a little bit, got back out, and we split up that night. I
yeah,
think,
we
again.
went to a different spot that we hadn't been. We'd kind of been in that same spot for a little bit.
Sure.
So we went a few miles away, and we're
Yep.
like, oh, we'll divide up. We'll see if we can pick anything out and bed it down for morning.
Yeah.
But
It's kind of.
a lot of cows. There's
Yeah.
a lot of cows in that area.
So yeah, that we didn't really get eyes on anything that night. So we packed her up, went back, and then Friday was the last day. So we had plans of being home here in Sioux Falls by 3:00. Try and beat the families home.
Yep. Being good dads.
Being good dads.
Being
Yeah,
good
we're gonna-
husbands. I get it.
We're gonna get out early. We'll get out there.
Yeah.
We'll see what we got, and if nothing's there, we won't hurt anything, and we'll just hit
Yep.
the road and pack up and hit the road and get back. Well,
Yeah.
sure enough, we get out there. First light as we're walking out, we end up kind of running into a couple of them, and so Dustin takes a lead on that and kind of watches them as they kind of mill off, and I go set up in another spot, and he kind of watched them bed down. I don't think they were in a real great position, and
There's some really thick stuff. So
Okay. Yeah.
it went tough.
Yep.
I didn't see anything initially, and then I spotted one way out in the distance, so I was getting my spotter set up and
Okay.
everything like that. And I just happened to look down, and right below me is this buck that we were able to harvest. He just kind of came out of nowhere and started milling around, and I shot Dustin a text. I said, "There's one right here," so we'll see where he beds up, and we'll try and hopefully make a stalk on him. And I probably watched him for 40 minutes at least, which is kind of weird because most of the time they were bedding up within 10 to 20 by the time
Sure.
we've seen them because the temperatures are so warm.
Yep.
Dustin gets over there. And there's kind of quite a few deer in the area all of a sudden.
Yeah. There. I mean, I got over there. He's like, oh, he's right over here in those bushes. His head's kind of down, and I look in the spotter. I'm like, whoa, baby. Like, yeah.
Like, nice.
Yeah, that's a
sweet.
nice
Good
one.
deer.
Cool.
So yeah, he just kind of makes his way off and kind of beds up. We couldn't really see where he bedded up. We just knew that he didn't come out of either cuts at that
Okay.
time.
Yep.
Here comes a couple more deer, and we're like, man,
Don't go in there. Don't go in there.
Don't go in there.
And of course, there's a nice 4x4
Yeah.
with this other
Yeah.
smaller one. He was smaller than the one with the velvet on, but
Okay.
like they were starting to work towards us, and we're like, oh, we might get
Yeah.
lucky here.
Right.
But they turned and went right for that other deer.
Yeah,
Oh, cool.
Except the little one, he came right up close.
right up close. So yeah, and they were in our kind of our travel path to make the stalks.
Yeah.
Complications are arising.
Yeah, complications are arising. We're on limited time because it's the ninth inning, and
Oh, yeah, yeah.
we're trying to get going pretty much. So they end up kind of heading off, and they end up taking the exact same path as this other buck did. So we waited a couple minutes, and all right, packed everything up, got ready to go, and figured out what our game plan was going to be. So we headed down and started making our way to him. Dustin stayed ahead kind of because he's a little more maneuverable because he wasn't carrying the bow. So I kind of waited back, and he could kind of get eyes on or decipher where
Yeah.
they were going to be at. So the
Yep.
advantage of having him along with was
Nice.
tremendous. It
Yeah.
helped out a ton.
We weren't wasted. It was pretty gnarly, the stuff that we were going through to get
Sure.
to keep our wind, which was goofy because we had a southeast wind, which was a little bit different. So to keep our wind good, we were going through some nasty badland stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, just I mean, I was the one running up to the top, and I would glass and run back down, and then he would kind of keep picking his way as we went. And then once we kind of figured it out, I ended up seeing a couple deer, and then we narrowed it down to like 2 cuts that they could be in.
Okay.
But we had to get up on top of this one butte, and that was like the only way. And
the only way.
of course, we get up on top of the first one, and I'm looking over. Nope, we're on the wrong one. We gotta find our way.
We crawled across that baby first before.
Yeah.
We put a stock on nothing at that point.
Oh yeah. That always seems like it always happens too, because you're at that point you're like you're
right
playing
here.
careful, and so you have to, even like you say, even if they're not, you don't know which one, you have to pretend they're there.
Yeah.
And that sucks though, because you always pick the wrong one the first time. I feel like every stock I do the same thing, and you use that energy, and then you have to like re-mentally gather yourself to be like, okay, like I gotta go slow and do that again. It's okay, like, but you want to start rushing at that point sometimes. So.
Right.
Yeah. Especially with the feeling of a time crunch. That we really wanted to be back at that time.
Yeah.
Been gone for a few days and whatnot, but
right.
Yeah.
So we get down off of that, and then we do find the right one that we were headed up to, and while another challenge occurs there,
First, our wind was kind of swirling in there, which there ended up being 8 deer laying on on a bench, basically, or shelf.
Yep.
And if they would have got around, I mean, it would have totally wrecked it if our wind would have. But then to look up, it's about a 20-foot pretty steep grade, and then it's just a probably 9-foot sheer face.
Yep.
So we were trying to figure out how we were going to get up there, and we kind of found a spot where it looked like we could get a foothold in there.
Yeah.
So by the time we get up to it, we realized, well, the foothold's at like 6 feet, so we're not getting.
Yeah.
Nice. So we have to make a human ladder, and Dustin stuck his hand out, and I jumped on his knee and was able to pull myself up, and then turned around and pulled him up.
Bicep curled him up.
Yeah, bicep curled him up. Yeah.
Left our packs down there and handed his bow up, and
perfect.
Exactly, just human ladder up that, and because
it did fireman stuff.
Yeah, it did.
You guys' jobs. Look at what happened.
Yeah, it works.
Yeah.
All right, keep going.
So I kind of hang back and let Dustin kind of sneak up there because he's real sneaky like that. So he gets up there and kind of finds the group of deer. I don't think we realized at that point that there was as many eyeballs in there as there was.
Okay.
So he finds what we thought was the right deer. So we get in position, and he tells me exactly where he's at, and I put an arrow in, get set, on my knees, draw back, and raise up, and I can only see this little guy sitting there, and I'm like, that's not him. So I get back down.
Moment of panic.
I'm like, oh my god, where's he at? Like, I have no idea. Everything looks exactly the same. So get back down, and I'm like getting myself gathered up again, just getting ready to pretty much make the full commitment of standing up so I can see everything down below. Cause I felt like maybe he was sitting a little bit below him, and then all of a sudden here comes Dustin, comes sneaking back around me like, no, stop. So I stop, and he said, I found the big one. Like, I thought that was the big one. But yeah, he ended up finding him. So we had to back out a little ways and then come back around. And he ended up pointing him out right there. We got to 35 yards.
Nice.
Meanwhile, apparently on top of that is poison ivy.
Ah, yes, the poison ivy.
I have poison ivy under this arm, under this arm, my side, my shin, a little bit on the back of my neck.
That is funny.
So here I am.
Yeah.
And thistles. I mean, there was this like, just the weirdest obstacles up there. Was not even paying attention to poison ivy.
Yes.
And
so if you want a mule deer, be prepared to go through poison ivy.
Oh,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, so you're moving into 35.
We get to 35. We figure out exactly where he's at. So I think Dustin got a little closer off to the side so he could have a little vantage point to be able to see kind of how everything plays out.
Yep.
Knock an arrow, get ready, draw back, and get up on my knees and find him and put a shot on him.
Nice.
What I thought was a pretty darn good shot.
Yeah.
Hit him hard. He pops up. I grab another arrow, put another arrow in, and he kind of comes towards me so I can't see him down below.
Okay, so
And
he's
as-
under that steep embankment.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha.
So as I'm kind of trying to find him, there was 8 other deer there, I believe.
Yep.
And they all saw me, Dustin, and they blew, and it just, everybody scattered like.
Trying to find your deer.
Oh.
Yeah, which one is it? There's a lot of antlers.
It's like that
flying around
Fast
out
and the
there.
Furious scene where they all scattered.
Yeah,
Yes.
it was crazy.
Yes.
It's crazy. So I spot a deer, and he comes. It looked like him. He comes around the backside and stands up on this knoll, and he's
Okay.
looking back to the west, I think, and I could see that there was an arrow there,
Nice.
stuck in that front. And I noticed right away there was no blood coming out of the side of it. It was dry. I thought, oh, that's not good.
Yeah.
You know, I was expecting a lot of blood at that point. And then he takes off, and Dustin comes running over, and he's like, well, where'd he go? And I said, he was standing right there. I know that there was an arrow in him. I know that hit him pretty good. And next thing we know, we look up. We just catch some movement up on top of this ridge top, and it was him standing there. Dustin hit him with the rangefinder, and he was like 354
Yeah.
yards or something
So he
crazy
covered
like
some
that.
ground fast.
Really fast.
That made us nervous.
Really, really nervous. And so he's up at that ridge top, and we kind of look at each other like, oh, and he just crests that hill, and it's like, I don't know. He got out of there real fast. I don't know what's going to happen. So we try and find our way back down. We got to crawl back down this 9-foot face here.
Yeah.
And
Nice.
That's not the
Reverse.
part that you think of when you're climbing up there. It's, oh, hey, look at this
Yeah.
is straight down. And then
So we kind of go to the last spot that we saw him down in the cut, and there's not a drop of blood at all. We're working our way through the Badlands. There's like 14 different cuts to follow and figure out which
Sure.
path that he ended up taking, just to see if we could find blood or the arrow or anything letting
Right.
us know that there was
Yeah.
a good hit on him.
Right.
Nothing to be found. We searched quite a while. So we went to the next known point that he was at. It was pretty easy to identify where he came up that cut at. So we stood up there, and there was nothing. And it's this vast openness of like
Mm-hmm.
prairie grass.
Something- yeah,
just
yeah.
nice swale. And then there was
there's
the Badland cut, on the one side. And then there was, really tall face of Badland with a couple of cuts, but a bunch of cedars.
Sure.
So I told Neil, I'm like, I'll go up here in these cedars. You go up over there where that cut is and kind of work your way down. I'm going to look under every one of these cedars. I mean, because I saw the hit. It punched right in there. I'm like, he's bleeding. It's a good hit.
Even if it's not externally, there's stuff going on inside.
Yeah.
So yeah, we split up, divide and conquer, and we're looking, and I'm getting more and more sick to my stomach.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
not happening. It's just, there's no way we're gonna find him out there. Next thing I know, I look up to Dustin, and he's kind of, after he's searched high and low through all these cedars, he kind of waves me over, and I'm just like, this is it. We're just gonna call it at this point. I mean,
Yeah.
we can only search for so long. And,
Yep.
and,
Not finding any
not
blood.
finding any blood or
Right.
nothing like that. So I head over there, and sure enough, he ends up finding I swear to God, a thumb drop sized drop of blood.
Yep.
Thumbnail drop of blood there on a Badland spot, and then it was kind of like, yeah, that's not much blood.
That's cool, but
That's
it's
cool.
nice.
That's not really, that's not really any hope for me right
That
now.
actually just pisses me off a little bit more right now.
Yeah.
We're 450 plus yards away from
Past
where
the shot point.
Yeah, shot point.
Yeah.
So
So yeah, confidence wasn't high at that point. I'll say that.
Yeah.
And we kind of keep walking. This face where he found the blood kind of curves back in. So we kind of follow that, and Dustin ends up finding 3 more drops of blood. So we stop. We kind of look, and then Dustin ended up getting eyes on him as he's still following this wall.
Sure.
yeah, we kind of figured he was going to bed up somewhere in the shade
Right.
up there. So we were going to go on each one of these little fingers, and we're looking in the first one, and then I caught movement and look over, and there he is walking out of the last one. So we jumped behind this cedar,
Yep.
I ranged him quick. He's at 74.
I put the slider to 74, and I was kind of slightly behind Dustin, and I should have thought about it at the time. Draw back, put it on him, release. The deer had taken a couple steps, probably was at 80 at that point.
Sure.
Shot right underneath him.
Yep.
And impact starts him up again, and here he goes again, up and over the top, and we're like, no.
Right, then you're just mad at yourself.
Yeah,
you
it
know?
can't be happening.
Yeah.
It took a little more time and thought about it again, but in the heat of the moment, that's what happens, I guess.
That's when the race started.
Yep.
He took off, and I went out of the starting blocks with my pack on.
Yeah, Dustin's gonna chase him down with a knife or something.
Yeah, I was not losing this deer after we found him again.
Yeah, right.
So yeah, I ended up going kind of to the downwind side of the next cut, which was about 200 yards.
Okay.
And there was a bunch of cedars in there, and I was looking under him, coming up, and then all of a sudden I come around the last cedar, and he peeks his head around at me, and I was like, oh shoot. So I'm reaching back and I'm waving Neal, and he's coming up, was behind me but a little bit farther, and right as he sees the deer and gets the full draw, it takes off again.
Bummer.
And then
You're
out of the starting blocks I go again.
Yeah.
So I take off up over this kind of gradual ridge, and all of a sudden I came to like a badland embankment, and I'm like, I'm going for it, and I just bail off of it. Keep running. I'm about halfway down, and I realize I'm like 10 feet up. I'm like, oh boy. Hit the ground hard. I'm like, yep, that hurt.
Yeah.
Take off running, and I'm up the other side, and he came up, and he's like, what the?
How did you get down there?
How did he get down?
So
I didn't go that route. I
Smart.
I walked around, but
Both he'd be on workman's comp at the same time.
Oh, yeah.
Doesn't look good.
Yeah, he's holding the bow with arrows,
Yeah.
jumping off of
Right.
walls.
Right.
No, so I ended up going all the way down to a point where it kind of fingered out into some badlands again, and there was one cut coming back up, and I was gonna just basically sit down there until I could see which one he went down, until Neal got around up to me, and I'm like, well, I'll work my way back up this one, and we'll see if he stopped short, because that was probably another 250 yards, and it was just enough of a grade where I couldn't see him when I was running. And then as I was working my way back up, I see him laying up against this badland on this shelf, and I was like, oh shoot.
So like he's betting that fast, like he's in a rough spot.
Yes.
Like he's not gonna live long anyway.
Yeah, he's not.
But like
he's just trying
in a
to
rough
get away
spot.
from us,
Right.
but not trying to completely leave us
He's
in
hurting
the dust.
enough to not go for.
Yeah.
so yeah, we found him, get up there, and I get an arrow ready because we just didn't want him to suffer anymore. That
Yeah,
kind
of
deal.
course.
I feel like
Of course.
it's kind of a bad deal. So I put an arrow in, and he's at 23 yards or something. So kind of a layup shot, I would say.
Yep.
Draw back, put it on him, and I shoot, and I'm like 15 inches high, maybe even higher than that.
Yep.
The slider
yeah,
on
the
74.
Dude, I have one arrow left at this point, and it didn't even dawn on me still.
Yep.
I draw back. I'm like, what the heck happened? I have no idea what happened. Put it in there, shoot high again. And I laid my bow down, and I'm just like...
You're sick,
I'm
dude.
sick to my stomach, because if he gets up again, it's, one of those
Tomahawk
things.
bow
Yeah. And Dustin happens to look down. I think we looked down at the same time. Did you adjust your slider back? So I'm shooting 35 at 20, so...
Yep.
So then, he's like, how about arrow, and like run back and get that one that's stuck in the badland. I'll stay here and watch him.
Yeah, so I went back and got that
Nice.
that arrow, recovered that arrow, came back, and by the time that I was just getting there, he had laid his head
Yeah,
down.
he had expired.
Oh, nice. So he was dying fast. Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And thankfully, the more we got to look at it, I think if you would have ended up putting an arrow into him, he could have rolled off. He was literally sitting on this little ledge with a 20-foot drop, and it was an undercut too.
Sure.
Down into this just gnarly crevice.
It would have been awful.
And of course, when we went to find him, there's like 2 ground hornets net holes in there, so we would have been down in there with the hornets, in this just nasty area.
That would have been terrible.
So,
dude, so don't feel bad. I'll tell you something that, like, we didn't get it on film because my brother, I made him stay way up where I snuck down my mule I shot last year. Same thing, I shot him, he went off, bedded down, I snuck up on him, and he was just bedded up on this little badland deal, same as like what you did. And shot like 15 inches high, same thing. I was like, what the hell? How'd I miss? Threw another arrow in. this far over top, and I see the arrow like hit the wall behind him. I'm like, what the hell? Like so mad, and then I'm like, oh. I slid it down. Like I had one arrow left, and I drilled him. But like when you started saying that right away, I'm like, that is the one downfall. Like those sliders are the coolest thing for Western hunting. Like I love it, but I think we'll all go through that moment of I forgot to put it back. And it just, but you'll never forget again.
No, never.
You'll never forget again.
No.
It's awesome. So don't feel bad. Been there, done that.
Oh yeah, so we ended up sliding them out around that, and we got some awesome pictures. And
it looked amazing.
Then it was Neal had never packed out deer before, so we did mine, and then we had Lance with us for mine, so we split it 3 ways.
Yeah, it makes it pretty light.
Yeah, now it's just the 2 of us, and we kind of made the decision, like the sun was getting high. By this time it was probably, noon, 12:30-ish. 12:30 by the time we got them, did some pictures.
Not getting home by 3.
Nope. No. But it was, the sun was beating down on us, and I kind of said, Neal, this is going to really suck for the next 10 minutes, but we're going to drag him up this steep face to get underneath that cedar to,
get some shade.
To basically pack him.
That's smart.
And it wasn't as bad as what I thought. I think there was still some adrenaline pumping through us.
Yeah.
But once we got in that shade, that helped a ton. Nice. And cooling that meat fast and
because you're a couple hours from getting it to coolers, right?
Yes. So. Yeah, and it was probably just shy of 3 miles for packing out, and thankfully there was a cattle water tank that we could stick our heads in.
So disgusting, by the way.
It felt so good.
I bet it did, but it's so gross.
Just cow spit.
So funny. No. All right, dude. So tell me this. This is your first time doing this. You had success. Give me the rundown on, the short take on just like what you learned, your takeaways from it. What you can apply for next time.
The whole concept of getting out early. Obviously, just rifle hunting and that kind of stuff. It's always getting out early, but to observe the deer for that long a period of time in the mornings, and then kind of see them, the bedding situation, and if they are stockable, if they're not. While Dustin was shooting his, I was trying to put a stock on a radio collar buck. I ended up seeing a buck with a collar on, and just learning how to maneuver, and especially with the badland cuts and how your wind is. With rifle hunting, you can get away with some issues with wind and that kind of stuff. Whitetail hunting out of a tree stand, wind's super important as well, but you don't get to see them as much in the heavily wooded areas where you get to see them and how they really react to your wind out in the open like that. So that was eye-opening. Finding the right vantage point, your access, that kind of stuff. I mean, it was a lot of learning, and then the hard work it is. You're with the pack on, just with the things that you need. You don't realize how much, what feels like a little bit of weight at the time, after a full day. I think we were putting on about 9 miles a day, is what the Fitbits are kind of showing, and how that really adds up. And then when you go ahead and throw 2 quarters or a cape and horns and whatever in your pack, and then try and come out 2.5 miles, the amount of fitness or how in shape you really need to be able to push through that kind of stuff is super important. Super important
for sure.
It was a lot of
it was
a lot of learning for me.
That's awesome. But it's fun to sit back and listen to people's first times is always exciting, to be able to actually document it too and hear about it, and it's always exciting for me too. But hearing those takeaways, because even like the cool thing is like you'll continue to do that even though this was the first time.
Right.
Like I think about how many years I am into it, and I'm like, dude, every year, like I'm just learning a little bit more, and you're adding more to that arsenal and knowledge of your own handbook of knowledge that you have, and how you can apply that, and how one situation that happened 4 years ago all of a sudden plays a role again 4 years later, and you kind of remember that and you apply it. You're just kind of like this predator that just gets better and better as you go, if you go into it with that open mind of learning like you're doing, so it's exciting to hear that. I mean, what a cool thing too, to both of you guys go out. Obviously you both harvested deer in the past, but to both get your first mule deer bucks with a bow in a couple day time period.
And those were the 2
is awesome.
The 2 biggest deer, the most mature deer that we had seen over the trip.
And to do
that's like unheard of.
Doesn't happen.
I mean, Neal said something too when we were packing out his, this, it was going to suck because we were exhausted already from the previous days. And then we were low on water. We had like less than a liter between the two of us, because we had been chasing this deer. And he's like, this is when that old saying, just embrace the suck.
Yep.
This is going to suck, but it's going to be so awesome when you get done.
Yeah, exactly.
And that suck is fun.
Yep.
Yeah, me and Matthew talk about that every time we have a pack out, how much we enjoy packing that out and going through that moment of just suckage, because I always think about, like, dude, who else right now at this very moment gets to do exactly what I'm doing and carrying an animal out and doing that. It's a special time. Like, Dad killed a bull late Thursday last week, and we were in a different spot, and he had already put in a boatload of miles that week in New Mexico, and, like, of course we were going to go in and pack the bull out that night.
Yep.
And the next day was our last day of hunting, and Dad's like, well, I can take care of this in the morning. Like, you guys don't have to, like, waste your energy on this. Your last day is tomorrow or whatever. And I'm like, no, dude, this is part of it. Like, I want to be here right now cutting this guy up and hauling him back to the truck. I don't care that we're getting in at 1. I'm getting up at 4 to go back out. Like, it's just part of it. It's so awesome because I have 6 days. And like, you have 4 days. You have, it's like you don't care how much sleep you lose. You don't care you miss some meals. It's just like, dude, I don't care if I hurt after this. Like, it's just part of that awesome experience.
Yes.
That's just really special because there's not everybody's doing it at the same time.
No, and it's a lot harder than you're anticipating. Always
Always is, dude, and that's what makes it so great.
Oh, absolutely.
That's how you better yourself for the following year. You go through it and you're like, okay, this is what I have to do better to prepare. And then you always end up pushing yourself harder anyway, because you just get better, and then you just do crazier stuff, and you push a little harder and stay out a little longer, and it's just funny how you progress. And you look back 3 years and you're like, I didn't know what I was doing back then, and then you look back another 3 years after 3 years or 6 years, and you look back at the 3 year mark and you're like, I didn't know what I was doing back then, and I really didn't know what I was doing back then. It's just funny how you just keep progressing.
I would say probably the thing that's changed most for me is glassing. I used to glass like everything, on my way in, and now it just goes to, like, I kind of got some basic core areas where I know, like, okay, this is what I'm going to focus on because that's where they like to be. And I don't, take that broad spectrum and kind of narrow it down.
Sure.
And that helps
you find the game.
Yeah.
For sure.
Terrain identification, where they're coming from, where they're going.
Yeah.
What they're using.
For sure. Neal, anything else you want to add?
No.
Before we jet off here? It's a pretty awesome story, dude.
It was total blast. I still kind of on cloud 9, like Dustin said.
Should be.
I know the success rate is not like this. Guys don't necessarily go out on the first time and are successful. So
that's cool. It's great you got to do it.
Cherish, that's for sure.
Exactly. I'm guessing both of you are going on the walls. So
absolutely.
Right over your wife's bed, I suppose.
Something like that.
Yeah. So awesome. Well, I appreciate you guys telling the story. I'm sure people will love hearing just about the first, all the experience. And you guys did a great job of storytelling that and getting visuals. I think people will really eat that up. I sure hope so. So if you guys enjoyed the story, obviously share it with others so they can experience these first time moments as well. We always appreciate it. Thanks for jumping on another episode of the Live Beyond Average podcast.